Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Today we celebrate the 244th birthday of our Army and recognize the proud traditions of selfless service and heroic service the Army has provided to our nation. The official party includes the Honorable David L. Norquist, performing the duties of the Deputy Secretary of Defense, the Honorable Mark T. Esper, Secretary of the Army, General Mark A. Milley, Chief of Staff of the Army, and Sergeant Major of the Army, Daniel A. Dailey. Please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the singing of our national anthem by Sergeant First Class Martha Crable and the invocation delivered by Chaplain Thomas L. Soljum, Chief of Chaplains.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me as we mark this celebration in prayer. The Lord is our refuge and strength and ever-present help in trouble. Lord God Almighty, we gather today to celebrate the 244th birthday of our Army, our nation's oldest fighting force. As we pause and remember where we have been, we look forward with anticipation to your blessings that lie ahead. We have been a force for freedom, a light for liberty, and a beacon of hope to those in need at home and abroad. Strengthen our soldiers as they train to fight and win our nation's wars. Continue to raise up leaders of character who can face the challenges ahead with courage and guide our Army into the future. Bless our families who support us. And Lord, continue to lead and guide us both now and forevermore. Amen.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary Esper.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're doing well. I'm sure it was a long night for some, so I want to congratulate the St. Louis fans.
Two World Championships in 1 year is not bad.
Anyways, it's a great game, Chief. They played well. That's a shame. It's a real shame. Happy birthday, Army. That's right. Thanks for coming out to this ceremony as we celebrate your United States Army. From the first men and men who rallied at Lexington and Concord back in 1775 to the sturdy Pennsylvanians who rescued them soon thereafter, you ad-libbed yesterday on the Hill. This is just a little bit of... Yes, they are up there. To our soldiers who are currently standing watch on freedom's frontier today, the Army has successfully answered the nation's call for the past 244 years. The Army has a rich history filled with remarkable achievements, and on this year's birthday, we are paying special tribute to the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings. Operation Overlord was unlike anything ever conducted in the history of warfare. The Allies' incredible victory at Normandy turned the tide of World War II and ensured that freedom and democracy would live on. Last week, on the shores of France, leaders from all over the world gathered to remember that incredible triumph. I had the opportunity to take part in that commemoration and to meet with some of the veterans from our greatest generation who risked everything to ensure the good would prevail over evil. The many stories of their determination, initiative, and grit display that they are truly remarkable. Despite being dropped far away from their intended drop zones, U.S. paratroopers came together in small teams and set out to accomplish their mission. Despite being thrown off course and forced to exit their Higgins boats in chest-deep water while under heavy fire, U.S. soldiers stormed the beaches at Utah and bloody Omaha. And despite the near-impossible task of scaling 100-foot cliffs with enemy machine gun fire bearing down upon them, the Rangers seized Point du Hoc. We owe a tremendous debt of gratitude for their sacrifice, and we remember the thousands of soldiers who never came home. As we reflect on this important event from our past, we should also think about the Army's future. For us to succeed on the next field of battle, we must instill in ourselves the same qualities of the force that crossed the English Channel and won that day. That force spent years preparing for the moment, just as we now prepare for the challenges of our future. That is why we are investing in a new generation of weapons and equipment. That is why we are modernizing our doctrine and organizations. That is why we are increasing the intensity of our training, and that is why we are raising our entry standards and recruiting high-quality Americans from all across the country. In the next war, ladies and gentlemen, we won't have the time or distance to prepare ourselves like we did in World War II, so we must get ready now. Fortunately, we have with us today a man who has committed himself to ensuring the Department of Defense has the resources needed to prevail in future wars. Secretary David Norquist plays a central role in setting the conditions for the Army to rebuild its readiness while taking the necessary steps forward to modernizing the force. As Mr. Norquist performs the duties of the Deputy Secretary of Defense, he continues to help lead the Department forward during this pivotal time for our military. His efforts have been critical in helping the Army to achieve our priorities, ensuring that we can effectively deter our adversaries and, if necessary, deploy, fight, and win. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the Honorable David Norquist.
All right, so the first thing I note is next time, if I want to make sure we get everyone in attendance, we will bring cake, since that, I think, is what is driving the line here. Thank you, Secretary Esper. Thank you for the beautiful version of our national anthem. Thank you for the prayer. This was very well done. Thank you. Just a short thing before I start. It's the path of my being standing in front of you actually begins with an Army cadet who walked up to me while I was standing in line at college waiting to get a tour of the library and said, "Wouldn't you rather go shoot on the range and rappel off the walls?" And I said, "Absolutely." That dragged me into Army ROTC, and although my eyes kept me from being commissioned, sent me to the Army staff, and 30 years later, here I am. So if you think the outreach that you do in those things doesn't matter, you'd be amazed at the paths it generates. So keep that in mind when you go out and you do recruiting, and you will all do recruiting, right? Yes. All right. All right, so it's great to be here today to celebrate the 244th anniversary of the Army's birth. 75 years ago, the Army celebrated its birthday by winning the Battle of Keratin, securing the territory between Omaha and Utah Beach and setting the foundation for the final success of the Allied campaign. Today, while we are here in the Pentagon celebrating with cake, the Army continues its tradition of ensuring that freedom prevails with soldiers patrolling the mountains of Afghanistan, defending our networks through their cybersecurity missions, and conducting joint training with partners and allies around the world. We are grateful to those who have fought for our freedom in the past and to those who continue to defend them today. As we know that just as you have done for the last 244 years, the Army will continue rolling along to defend our nation in the future. Thank you for being here to celebrate today, and thank you again for your service.
Hua.
Thank you, Mr. Norquist. Ladies and gentlemen, General Milley.
Hey, give it up for Pittsburgh. Because we know that if you're from Pittsburgh, you really wanted to be from Boston. 2 world championships in a 7th game, not bad. So I don't want to hear it. And this whole idea about this company of Pennsylvania riflemen. 6 companies. I mean, that's such fake news. It's actually false. Let me tell you the real story. Okay, so one of my guys, I had him do some deep research, went over to the National Archives, and they discovered a letter, this is true, a letter from the provincial legislature in Massachusetts back in the day that sent a letter to Congress down in Philadelphia, it took 6 weeks to get there, asking for reinforcements because only New England had the courage to fight against Great Britain. And it took a while for Pennsylvania to step up to the plate, but eventually they did. There wasn't anybody out in Pittsburgh at that time, by the way. That was beyond the, so. But anyway, thanks everybody for coming. Let me say just a couple of words here. We're going to re-enlist some great soldiers today, representing the total Army, the National Guard, the U.S. Army Reserve, and the regular Army. Together, multiple MOSs, and so on. And together, they represent more or less about 25 years of combat experience in this group that's about to recommit themselves to the cause for which we fight. And you're looking at over 320 years of service amongst this group of folks that are about to re-enlist. And it's incredibly meaningful that they're going to re-enlist today on 13 July. And the reason that's meaningful is today is the day, as you just heard Secretary Norquist say, today's the day of the 101st Airborne Division at the Battle of Corinthtown, which is part of the Normandy campaign. And on that day, 6 June 1944, when we invaded Normandy and paratroopers jumped in the night before at 0100, all the way to the end of July, beginning of August, that whole Normandy campaign, there were 19 U.S. Army divisions, in addition to British and Canadian and other units that were fighting. But 19 U.S. Army divisions participated in the Normandy campaign, 6 of them on D-Day itself. And during that campaign, 37,000 U.S. Army soldiers were killed in action. 37,000 were killed in action in about 6 to 7 weeks. And that's in Europe. And then if you shift gears and you go over to the Pacific, the U.S. Army was in action there as well, in the South Pacific, in the Philippines, and New Guinea, in that campaign. And then in the Central Pacific, the Marines were hitting the beach at the Saipan, and the Army was hitting the beach at Guam in the Marianas campaign, all in the months of June and July 1944. And we suffered 16,000 killed in the Central Pacific and another 9,000 killed in the South Pacific. Think of those numbers. They're incredible. That's what the United States of America was doing in World War II in a single 6 to 8 week period with those levels of casualties. And people frequently use the term, and here in the Pentagon it gets used a lot, about great power competition and the return of great power competition. And we, all of us in the business of national security of the United States, whether in uniform or great civilians, we should always pause for what that really means. And what that really means is what I just mentioned. Significant challenges, significant casualties, significant battles. That is something that, frankly, we hope would never happen again. While we were there, while Secretary and I were over in Normandy, one of the veterans of the Battle of Corinthtown of the Normandy campaign, who was still alive, 96 years old, he was wounded 3 times, had a couple of silver stars. And I asked him, I said, what's the lesson that you drew from your experiences here at Normandy and in World War II? And he looked at me and he said, General, never let it happen again. Never let it happen again. And he's so right. Think about those casualties. So how do you never let it happen again? You never let it happen again by readiness, by modernization, by having a large, capable military force, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, by re-enlisting tremendous people, managing talent. That's how you never let it happen again. The peace through strength is not a bumper sticker. It's a very, very true thing that keeps the peace in the world. And that's what you are committing yourself to do, to never let it happen again. And I'm very, very proud of you. And what you're about to do, and for those in the audience, you've probably heard me say this before, but what you're about to do is you're going to take an oath. And I'm going to administer an oath in just a minute. And your oath is a sacred oath. And it's an oath not to a king or a queen or a president or any particular individual. It's not an oath to a country. You're not taking an oath to a piece of ground. You're not taking an oath to a religion or an ethnic group or any of that. You're taking an oath to an idea that's embedded within the Constitution. In a couple of seconds, you're going to reaffirm your oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. And in that is an idea. And it's a simple and powerful idea. It's the same idea that the 101st Airborne Division jumped into Carrington to defend. It's the same idea that my dad hit the beach at Saipan in the Central Pacific at the same time they hit the beach at Normandy. It's this idea, and it's a really powerful idea that brought down Nazi Germany. It's an idea that brought down Hitler. It's an idea that defeated Imperial Japan. It's an idea that the Taliban and ISIS are afraid of. And all this idea says is that you and I, no matter who we are, it doesn't matter if you're a male or you're a female. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're white or you're black. It doesn't matter if you're Asian or you're Indian. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter if you're gay or straight or something in between. It doesn't matter where you came from, whether you're from Boston or Pittsburgh or California. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter your last name. It doesn't matter your country of origin. It doesn't matter whether you're a Catholic, you're a Protestant, you're a Muslim, Jew. You choose not to believe it all. This oath that you're about to take to this idea says that you're willing to die. You're willing to die to make human beings, no matter where you're from or how you identify, to commit yourself to the idea that we are all born under those colors of red, white, and blue. We're all born free and equal. And you're going to rise or you're going to fall based on your knowledge, your skills, your attributes, your talent. And you're going to be judged by the content of your character, not the color of your skin. That is the essence of this country that we call the United States of America. That's what you're swearing an oath to defend, even at the cost of your life, like those paratroopers in Carrington. So it's enormously proud moment for you, for your families, and for all of us to re-enlist you on this particularly important day, almost the 244th birthday. Tomorrow is the actual birthday for the United States Army, and today we're celebrating the 75th anniversary of the capture of Carrington. So thank you so much for recommitting yourself to the cause and the idea for which we are all so very, very proud of you for doing. And I know I speak on behalf of the Secretary and the entire Army staff. So with that, we'd like to go ahead and I think get you up here and go ahead and prepare to re-enlist, right? So why don't you go ahead and on your feet here.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated for the re-enlistment.
If I can get you to go ahead and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your full name.
I
do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
To support and defend.
To support and defend.
The Constitution of the United States of America.
The Constitution of the United States of America.
Against all enemies.
Against all enemies.
Foreign and domestic.
Foreign and domestic.
And that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
And I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
And that I will obey the orders.
And I will obey the orders.
Of the President of the United States.
Of the President of the United States.
And the orders.
And the orders.
Of the officers appointed over me.
Of the officers appointed over me.
According to regulations.
According to regulations.
And the Uniform Code of Military Justice.
And the Uniform Code of Military Justice.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, congratulations. Thank you. Thanks, guys. All right.
Please be seated. The Army birthday cake, commemorating 244 years of service to the nation, is being brought forward. The cake was prepared by the non-commissioned officers and soldiers assigned to the Army Executive Dining Facility. Moving the cake into position are soldiers from the Old Guard in their World War II period uniforms.
left, face. The Soldier's Creed. I'm an American soldier. I'm a warrior and a member of a team. I serve the people of the United States and live the Army values. I will always place the mission first. I will never accept defeat. I will never quit. I will never leave a fallen comrade. I am disciplined, physically and mentally tough, trained and proficient in my warrior tasks and drills. I will always maintain my arms, my equipment, and myself. I am an expert and I am a professional. I stand ready to deploy, engage, and destroy the enemies of the United States of America in close combat. I am a guardian of freedom and the American way of life. I am an American soldier.
Please be seated. Command Sergeant Major Daniel Smith and Private Jacob Rad, please join Secretary Esper, General Milley, and Sergeant Major Dailey for the cake cutting. Sergeant Major Smith and Private Rad represent the oldest and youngest soldiers in the National Capital Region.
Join me singing Happy Birthday to the United States Army. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Army. Happy birthday to you.
Yeah, that's a big cake. Hopefully it's legal.
Thank you, Secretary Esper, General Milley, and Sergeant Major Dailey, Sergeant Major Smith, and Private Rad. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing and join in the singing of the Army Song. The words of the Army Song are printed on the back of your program.
March along, sing a song with the army of the free. Count the brave, count the true, who have fought to victory. We're the army and proud of our name. We're the army and proudly proclaim. First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along. Then it's hi, hi, hey, the army's on its way. Count off the cadence loud and strong. For wherever we go, you will always know that the army goes rolling along.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the cake cutting ceremony. Please join us for an informal reception prepared by the talented non-commissioned officers and soldiers of our very own Army Executive Dining Facility. Thank you, and happy birthday, Army.
Wait.